working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, Malma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. On today's headlines. Japan's Coast Guard said Friday they found a man floating face down and unresponsive at sea as they search for survivors from a ship that sank during a typhoon with 43 crew on board. Indian warships aided Sri Lanka's Navy to extinguish a fire on a massive oil tanker off the island's eastern coast. The vessel, which had a crew of 18 Filipinos and 5 Greek nationals, issued a distress call after an engine room explosion. Our EBC correspondent in Sri Lanka, Vanessa Viloria Silva, will give us an update. And Thailand records its first COVID-19 case after a 100-day streak. Our EBC correspondent Gila Pablo will join us live. And later, an Indonesian dentist is trying to lift her patient's spirits with customized and colorful PPE suits, which she creates herself. Japan's Coast Guard said they found a man floating face down and unresponsive at sea as they search for more survivors from a ship that sank during a typhoon with 43 crew on board. Now, reports say he now has died. Meanwhile, one survivor has so far been rescued from the ship. Water, said the man who identified himself as a Filipino in this video. Thank you very much, he said. The Filipino asked, I am the only one, no other one. The man told rescuers that he had put on a life jacket and dived into the sea after a warning announcement on board on Wednesday. He said one of the boat's engines had stopped and a wave then overturned the ship, which later sank. The Coast Guard said this in a statement. There were no details on when and where the ship sank, but the man said he had not seen other crew members while waiting to be rescued. The rescued man is currently being transported to Arami Oshima Island, around 120 kilometers away, according to the Coast Guard in a statement. The ship sent a distress signal early on Wednesday, and the Coast Guard was able to rescue one survivor that evening. The one you saw earlier, the Filipino chief officer who was found bobbing in the open ocean in a life jacket. Dramatic photos and videos released by the Coast Guard show the 45-year-old floating in the darkness and being pulled onto a boat with a rope as rescuers battled violent and rolling waves. He was quickly brought to a large vessel where Coast Guard personnel with surgical masks and gloves wrapped him with blankets. Cambodia has revised its COVID-19 test fee and is reimbursing the rest of the deposit to the travelers. Here's Crystal Ann Ballesteros for an update. Hello, Crystal.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Crystal.
That is correct. Let us have positive vibes this Friday by providing our viewers this latest news. Cambodia's COVID-19 situation continued to show remarkable results, with 0 new cases and another recovery, bringing recovered tally to 272 out of 274. This effectively leaves just 2 more active COVID-19 cases in Cambodia who are still receiving treatment. According to a press release of the Ministry of Health made public this morning, the figure represents 99.27% of the total confirmed cases. Another good news, Alma, Cambodia will charge only $100 from foreigners for each of the required 2 COVID-19 tests, and the rest of their deposit will be returned to them. The additional notification was circulated yesterday by the Ministry of Health in order to assure the transparency of the service among incoming foreigners. The first test, according to the statement, will be required upon their arrival, and the second test will be done on the 13th day of their quarantine. Foreigners can get tested at the assigned health bases closest to them, and the payment will be deducted from their deposit with commercial banks, which are the ministry's partners. The remainder of the deposit will be returned to the owner within 3 days after having the negative testing result, which is the second test. The charges do not include the hotel or accommodation fees and other services if the foreigners are detected with COVID-19. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much for your updates there in Cambodia. Thank you, Crystal. Stay safe and have a great weekend.
You too. That's the latest news here in Cambodia, and I am Crystal Ann Ballesteros, and we live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the tourism of Thailand is offering a discount to expats to travel across the country to boost domestic tourism. Joining us live from Pattaya, here's Esther Odanga. Hello, Esther.
Hello, good afternoon, Alma, and to our viewers around the world. So here's one of the latest.
Also make a cleaner.
Go ahead, Esther. Go ahead, Esther.
Okay, according to Pattaya News, the Tourism Authority of Thailand, or TAT, plans to offer a 500 baht discount for expatriates in Thailand to travel across the country to stimulate domestic tourism starting this month. The director of TAT's ASEAN, South Asia and South Pacific Market Division, Mr. Kul Pramod Wanalert, revealed last August 30 that the recently presented tourism deal would encourage the expatriate population in Thailand to travel in the country and stimulate domestic tourism during the international border closure. The director stated, and I quote, "Since the international border is still closed, one of the potential target groups for Thai tourism are the foreigners who are working or studying in Thailand, known as expats, with a population of more than 180,000 people. This group of expatriates could also serve as a voice to promote tourism in Thailand in the long term among their own nationality and all around the world. Therefore, we need to promote our health, safety, and confidence in the tourism through the eye of the expats," unquote. The 500 baht discount scheme is expected to help reduce expenses for expatriates who often face a higher fee for entering natural and cultural attractions than local people, and to attract them to travel domestically with a special discount on a better deal. With a budget of 2 million baht, Tourism Authority of Thailand would support 500 per person per trip for all nationalities under a condition to travel across the country and stay at least one night. The deal is only reserved for expats and their families. Initially, the offer is believed to be registered at the upcoming Expat Travel Deal 2020 in Bangkok on September 11 to 13 with a number of promotions and package deals from tourist entrepreneurs who agreed to join the TAT's discount promotion. Tourism Authority of Thailand is also under negotiation with the relevant authorities regarding the issue of the exclusion of entrance fees for natural and cultural attractions for expatriates. The result is expected to be announced at the same time as the event, according to Director Kul Pramod. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Esther, for your updates there in Pattaya. Thank you for joining us again. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Alma. Reporting live from Pattaya, Thailand, this is Esther Odanga. We live in interesting times.
And staying in Thailand, a disc jockey sentenced last week to 2 years in prison has tested positive for COVID-19. Now that ends the kingdom's 100-day run without a local transmission. To tell us more about it, joining us live is Gila Pablo from Bangkok. Hello, Gila.
Yes, Helma, good afternoon, and good afternoon to all the viewers around the world. And you're right, according to Bangkok Post, just one day after passing the landmark 100 days in which the country has been free of locally transmitted coronavirus infections, the Department of Disease Control, or DDC, on Thursday confirmed a new case of COVID-19, prompting the department to issue a warning to the public over social distancing and mask wearing. Alma, the patient, was identified as a male inmate who tested positive for COVID-19 shortly after arriving in prison, where new inmates have to undergo 14-day quarantine. He has since been moved from his prison to a hospital run by the Corrections Department. Speaking at the Ministry of Public Health yesterday, DDC Chief Suwatnachai Watanayin Charionchai said the department and its partners are urgently investigating the case to assess the risk posed by the inmate on the general prison population. Alma asked if the inmates' infections marked the onset of a second wave of the outbreak. Dr. Suwanachai said a fresh outbreak is defined by two factors: discovery of infection and transmission of a virus. He said the patient has been located, and as for the transmission, the Public Health Ministry is looking to devise ways to control the spread of the disease by narrowing down people who may have been in contact with the patient. Almahi urged operators of pubs, other nightlife entertainment businesses, as well as sporting venues packed with people to strictly follow public health measures to curb the risk of another transmission. According to the department's initial investigation, the inmate was a DJ who worked at branches of Sam Wan Song Plan, a pub and restaurant, on Rama 3 Road and Rama 5 Road, as well as a coffee shop called First Cafe on Kausan Road. He's said to have lived with 7 family members at the Bansuan condominium in Bangmod area. They were regarded as an at-risk group by state officials. The rest of the family is currently being contacted by the authorities. The Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, or BMA, has ordered the closure of the pubs for 3 days for a cleanup. Tawisil Bisanoyutin, the spokesman for the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, or CCSA, yesterday confirmed the inmate tested positive for the disease. The DDC identified the patient as a 37-year-old man imprisoned at the Central Special Correctional Institution on drug charges on August 26, adding he was in the facility with the 34 other prisons and officials. The first test was said to be conducted by Mahidol University, which on Wednesday found the man to be infected and transferred him to the hospital that night. The test on the 34 others returned negative. The DDC collected a sample from the patient yesterday for a second test. It is to be done by the Department of the Medical Science. Walairut Shaifu, the director of the Epidemiology Bureau, said the inmate showed symptoms on Saturday, but they were not clear until Thursday. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Gila. You take care. Stay safe over there in Thailand. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Alma, and thank you for having me today. Again, this is Gila Pablo reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Gila. All right, let's now go to the island of Maldives, where the island has tightened its entry requirements for tourists because of a spike in COVID cases. Steffi Dewan joins us live from Maldives. Hello, Steffi.
Hi, Alma. Yes, that's the latest news for today. The Foreign Ministry here in Maldives has tightened entry requirements for tourists after an increase in COVID-19 infections at more than a dozen resorts. Maldives reopened its luxury resorts islets in mid-July after a month-long lockdown. During that reopening, we did not require visitors to be tested or carry virus-free certificates when entering the country. So since then, Alma, 29 local staffs and 16 foreigners have tested positive at the resort. They are also being isolated at the same resort. As you know, Alma, tourism is the major economic driver here. Being a tropical island paradise popular with honeymooners and celebrities. And authorities had hoped tourists would come back here in Maldives, an archipelago of 1,190 tiny coral islets after international flights restarted. However, the ministry officials said only 5,200 tourists visited Maldives in the month since July 15. It's only a fraction of the pre-pandemic 141,000 monthly average. So now, Alma, under the new guidelines, all tourists will be required to present a negative COVID-19 test results upon arrival. Meanwhile, our island has recorded more than 1,000 new infections in just the past week to take the total number of cases to 8,003. Most of the infections since the start of the pandemic have been among poor migrant laborers and locals in the densely populated capital Male. The government had imposed a night curfew in Male and neighboring inhabited islands from early August to contain the sharp rise in cases in Malé. And some 29 people have so far died. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Steffi, for your updates. Looking forward to more updates there in the island of Maldives. Thank you for joining us today. Stay safe.
So much, Alma, reporting live from Maldives. This is Steffi Dihuan, and we live in interesting times.
All right. Thank you, Steffi. Steffi Diwan from our EBC Maldives Bureau. All right. ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Sa September 5 at 6 ay muli nating mapapanood ang mas pinalawak at mas pinalaking talent competition on Philippine television and online. Tagisan ng Galing Part 2! Muling samahan ang ating mga hurado na humanap ng mga Pilipinong may natatanging galing sa pagkanta at pagsayaw. Abangan ang kanilang performances na magpapayanig at magbibigay ng kulay sa ating TNG stage. Dito lang yan sa Tagisan ng Galing Part 2. Dito lang sa Net 25. Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 is co-presented by Cooper, an expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Our sponsors, BDO, we find ways. JRC Industrial Sales, RS Square Variables Incorporated, your trusted UPS supplier and UPS maintenance provider in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. RJK Services Manpower Agency Corporation, Robus Builders, Chris Rack Enterprises, Victory Carpentry, DOP Asiatic Pest Control Services, and AUB Aspire for the Future. In partnership with New Era University ETAP, Expanded Tertiary Education, Equivalency and Accreditation Program. Embrace Cafe, we embrace differently abled persons.
The New Era University, in its 45th year of excellence, discipline, and service to humanity, will offer online education all levels beginning this first semester academic year 2020 to 2021 through the NEU Virtual Learning Environment, or NEU VLE. New Era University offers a complete basic education cycle from kindergarten up to senior high school, offering all strands. NEU has 18 colleges, and 2 graduate schools. It also offers ALS and ETF. Best of all, NEU has the most affordable tuition fees among private universities in the Philippines. NEU is at Quezon City, the city of San Fernando, Pampanga, General Santos City, South Cotabato, Lipa City, Batangas, and Pinugay, Baras, Rizal.
New Era University is under the stewardship of Dr. Dilo L. Rosas.
What are you waiting for? Be part of the new normal. Enroll now. Classes start on October 5, 2020.
All right, welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Joining us live now from the country of Vietnam is our EBC correspondent, Chriselle Lacuna. Hello, Chriselle. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon. Go ahead.
Yes, for the COVID-19 update, Vietnam has reported 0 COVID-19 case over the past 36 hours, according to the Ministry of Health. The tally remains at 1,046 cases, with 755 recoveries and 35 deaths. As for our headline, Vietnam pledges to facilitate Thai investors' entry amid COVID-19 pandemic. Vietnam will continue facilitating entry of foreign investors, experts, managers, and skilled workers, including those from Thailand, into the Southeast Asian country as part of its effort to spur economic recovery amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign Minister Pham Binh Minh made the above statement during his online talks with Thailand Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign Minister Don Pramudwinai on Thursday. Minh said Vietnam will also mull over the possibility of resuming flights between the two countries. Meanwhile, Don conveyed the Thai government congratulations to the government of Vietnam on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of Vietnam Independence Day last September 2, affirming his country's attaches importance to consolidating and advancing the fine traditional friendship and cooperation with Vietnam. Don spoke highly of Vietnam's effort in containing the COVID-19 pandemic and congratulating the neighboring country as the current ASEAN chair, or having successfully organized ASEAN meetings in a bid to sustaining and accelerating cooperation with ASEAN and between ASEAN and the bloc's partners. The pairs agreed to beef up of the exchange of visits and contracts when possible and coordinate in organizing activities marking the 45th founding anniversary of the two countries' diplomatic ties in 2021. Both sides committed to maintaining and making full use of sides' existing bilateral cooperation mechanisms, including organization of the fourth joint cabinet meeting at a suitable time, and the signing of an action plan to implement the Vietnam-Thailand enhanced strategic partnership in the 2021 to 2025 period. The two countries agreed to work together to realize the two-way trade goal of 20 billion US dollars and the ink new labor agreement soon. Those are the latest from Vietnam, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Chriselle. Thank you for joining us today. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Alma. Reporting live from Ho Chi Minh City, this is Chriselle Yacuna. We live in interesting times.
And warships are joining the fight to put out a fire on an oil tanker off Sri Lanka. The vessel, which had a crew of 18 Filipinos and 5 Greek nationals, issued a distress call after an engine room explosion. Joining us live from Sri Lanka is Vanessa Viloria Silva. Hello, Vanessa.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Vanessa. Go ahead.
Yes, Alma. Indian warships are aiding Sri Lanka's navy to extinguish a fire on a massive oil tanker off the island's eastern coast. Sri Lankan authorities said there was no immediate danger to the coastline should there be a leak from the New Diamond, which was carrying 270,000 tons of crude and 1,700 tons of diesel. But they remain concerned about the possibility. The vessel is carrying a crew of 18 Filipinos and 5 Greek nationals. Navy spokesman Captain Indica de Silva said it issued a distress call Thursday after an engine room explosion. The Navy said 1 Filipino crew member was missing, another was injured, and the rest were rescued from Panama flag vessel. The ship's third officers, also a Filipino, had suffered serious burn injuries and was taken to Calmonay Hospital. Navy spokesman Captain Indica de Silva said that an Indian Coast Guard vessel and one of our ships are now in the process of dosing the flames that have spread to the deck of the tanker's service area. The goal was to keep the fire from reaching the cargo. He said 2 Russian anti-submarine ships, Admiral Tributz and Admiral Vinogrado, had also reached the stricken vessels, but later withdrew as they could not effectively battle the fire. 2 tugboats from Sri Lankan's southern port of Hambantota loaded with the fighting equipment were expected at the scene to join the battle against the fire. Disaster management officials said computer simulations based on current weather conditions showed no immediate threat to Sri Lankan coastline in case of a major oil spill. And eventually putting it out, the new Diamond had been traveling from Kuwait to Indian port of Paradip. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much, Vanessa. I know you're busy. Thank you for joining us today. Stay safe.
Thank you so much, Alma. Yes, Alma, reporting live from Sri Lanka. This is Vanessa Viloria Silva, and we live in interesting times.
The Filipino community in New Zealand is supporting the mandatory wearing of face coverings on public transport. Here's Greg Besa for the details.
As the government continues to fight against the resurgence of COVID-19 infection in New Zealand, one of the bold health measures it has undertaken is the mandatory use of face coverings on public transport starting Monday, 31st of August, until further notice. Much as the use of face coverings on public transport would become part of new normal, members of the Filipino community in this country are warmly welcoming and supporting this new health measure.
Upon taking advice from health officials that the use of face coverings can reduce the risk of people spreading the COVID-19, particularly in places where physical distancing is difficult to maintain, the government has required those aged 12 and over to use a face mask or face covering on public transport and planes under alert level 2 and above, except for some health, disability, and practicality reasons. Public transport includes trains, buses, and ferries. On the case of small passenger vehicles like taxis and ride-sharing cars, such as the widely used Uber, only the drivers are required to wear the masks while the passengers are not being obligated to. To make this mandatory health measure easy to comply with, the government is encouraging the people to use scarf or bandana if they don't have a face mask, and even urge them to make their own washable and reusable face coverings rather than ones. On the other hand, failure to follow this health measure would be subjected to $300 infringement notice or a fine of up to $1,000 imposed by the New Zealand courts. As the government is calling once more the collective action of everyone by complying with the mandatory face coverings, members of the Filipino community in the country have warmly welcomed and fully supported this new health policy, just like what they are doing with other public health measures aimed at containing and stamping out the COVID-19 for the second time around. In particular, those in Wellington City, the capital and political center of New Zealand, are very vocal on their support of such.
One, I am supporting the policy regarding the mandatory use of face masks in public transport. Why is it really necessary for all those commuters? It's because it helps you to get yourself protected from the virus and from the spread of the virus itself. We don't know who are infected or not. So with the use of face masks, it also helps us to prevent ourselves to touch our face unconsciously, because I think it happens several times. So we don't know what objects or surfaces that we have touched, whether they are contaminated or not. So please keep on wearing face masks at all times, especially when you are using public transport. Please keep safe, everyone.
I'm in favor of the mandatory wearing of face masks in public transport, as it will help the prevent of the virus, COVID-19. Sana sa mga Pilipino, sumunod tayo sa pinag-uutos ng government ng New Zealand.
I favor on putting the mask because I value the health and safety of others. If we all favor to put the mask together, we can help decrease the spread of coronavirus and help protect our loved ones.
I support the government imposed face covering for our own safety.
Other than those in Wellington City, the Philippine ambassador to New Zealand, His Excellency Jesus Domingo, is appealing to other Filipinos across the country to abide with this new health measure.
This is just a friendly reminder to our kababayan and friends to please follow the directives of the New Zealand government and wear your face masks when using public transport in planes, trains, taxis, buses. And let's also make it a habit to wear your mask whenever you venture out into public, into crowded areas, going outside, for your own safety and for the protection of others. Kaya natin ito.
The compulsory use of face coverings on public transport will certainly bring a big change to everyone's way of life. But this is just a small sacrifice to make, as long as this new health measure can help in protecting people's health from the deadly COVID-19 infection. From Eagle News New Zealand Bureau, this is Greg Besa of Lower Hutt. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Greg. ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Hello, my name is Robin and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said many people are getting sick. That is why we have to stay at home. That is why I cannot go to school. I cannot play outside. And I cannot even visit my friends. We can only go outside if we visit the doctor. Or if we need to buy some food. And when we get home, we have to wash our hands. While I'm at home, I do my homework, clean up my toys, help cooking our food, and help my parents with their work. Please stay home so we can all play together again. Bye!
At 9 a.m. today, Typhoon Haishin has entered the Philippine area of responsibility and was named Christine PH. Haishin, the 10th cyclone of the Pacific typhoon season, is unlikely to hit the Philippines landmass, according to Pagasa. Although it is forecast to hit southwestern Japan this weekend, to be followed by a landfall in South Korea. The storm reached the equivalent of Category 4 status on Thursday. It has sustained winds of 145 miles per hour. It is now forecast to become a super typhoon with sustained winds of 160 miles per hour by Friday, a significant increase from previous forecasts. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center predicts that Typhoon Haishin could hit Japan as an equivalent of a Category 3 storm. After Japan, it will then head northwestward into South Korea as a Category 2 storm. Embassies of ASEAN member countries in Tokyo and the ASEAN Japan Center organized the online symposium Beyond COVID-19, Moving into the New Normal, to commemorate the bloc's 53rd anniversary on August 20. In his keynote address from the headquarters in Jakarta, ASEAN Secretary General Lim Jock Hoi expressed confidence in the region's resilience, noting it'll recover from the effects of the pandemic the same way it overcame previous challenges such as the 1998 Asian financial crisis and the 2008 global economic meltdown. Now, Lim discussed various regional initiatives to strengthen ASEAN's capacity to withstand the economic effects of the pandemic, including the establishment of an ASEAN COVID-19 Response Fund and the Hanoi Plan of Action, a comprehensive recovery framework in response to the global health crisis. A panel of experts led by Dr. Fukunari Kimura of the Keio University Faculty of Economics and Dr. Maria Bautista of the University of the Philippines School of Economics outlined various policies and action plans to help ensure the region's economic recovery. Among these include prioritization of social protection, delivery of essential goods and services, as well as increasing the use of information and communications technology for e-commerce, e-learning, and e-government. Philippine Embassy in Tokyo Deputy Chief of Mission Robespierre Bolivar, who also serves as a Council Director for the Philippines at the ASEAN Japan Center, represented the country at the symposium. The government of Canada provided 120,000 N95 respirator masks to the Department of Health as part of its commitment to support Filipino frontline healthcare workers' efforts in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. Canada's ambassador to the Philippines, Peter MacArthur, said during a handover event at the DOH in Manila that Canada is collaborating closely with the government of the Philippines in the fight against COVID-19. The masks were provided through a partnership between the government of Canada, the ASEAN Secretariat, and ASEAN member states that aims to mitigate biological threats. Since 2013, this partnership has been working on strengthening biological security, biological safety, and disease surveillance capabilities in the region. Indonesian officials in hazmat suits parade empty coffins through the streets of Jakarta to remind the residents that coronavirus cases are still surging in one of Asia's worst-hit nations. Take a look.
Ada yang nyapu, ada yang kena dana, semuanya tidak jerah. Dan kita lihat juga di beberapa posisi di lingkungan, masih juga orang masih membuka masker, karena mungkin mereka belum terkena. Nah, salah satu yang ampuh itu, kita bawa keranda, kita kasih tahu kalau melalaikan semuanya, maka ini adalah akibatnya. Gitu ya. Jadi
WHO published guidance for clinicians and healthcare decision makers on the use of corticosteroids in patients with COVID-19. Take a look.
Today we are publishing our living guidance on corticosteroids for COVID-19, and we have two simple recommendations. One is we have a strong recommendation to use corticosteroids in patients who are severely ill, so very sick, severe illness or critical illness. And the second recommendation, or the second suggestion, is not to use corticosteroids in patients who have mild disease. And the concern with the mild disease is that actually it may cause harm. We were able to pool data from 8 clinical trials, a total over 7,000 patients that were randomized to corticosteroids or usual care. And in that evidence synthesis, we found the estimate of effect that you would have 9 fewer deaths per 100 patients. And if you translate this, it would take treating 14 patients to save 1 life. So this is an important reduction, a life-saving, reduction in mortality and a life-saving intervention. We don't recommend patients to use this as self-medication. It should be done under the supervision of a physician. Not for prophylaxis, and only for severe disease.
Right. But in the backdrop of whatever else they're getting, oxygen.
Tens of thousands of girls across Asia are being forced into marriage by desperate families plunged into poverty because of the coronavirus pandemic. As campaigners warn, years of progress tackling the practice is being undone. Indonesia, which has one of the highest rates of child marriages in the world, according to UNICEF, last year raised the legal age for wedlock in a bid to tackle the problem. Despite the reform, many are still being forced into marriages by desperate families in poverty. Take a look.
Saya menikah di usia 15. Saya menikah masih duduk di bangku SMP kelas 3. Saya bertemu dengan suami saya.
Ketemunya di mana ya?
Ketemu di rumah. Mau jadi orang sukses tapi yang mau diapa jadi begini.
Secara budaya bisa kita lihat bahwa keluarga kalau misalnya ada orang yang datang untuk melamar pertama kali, nah biasanya di pedesaan itu langsung diterima. Mengapa? Karena takut anaknya nanti menjadi tidak laku. Tidak ada yang datang kalau ditolak ya. Akibatnya menjadi perawan tua. Jadi usia 18 kalau belum kawin itu sudah dianggap tua gitu ya. Jadi ini menjadi persoalan. Jadi ketika misalnya dia lulus SD, tidak ada kegiatan yang lain, ya salah satunya adalah lari kepada perkawinan anak karena sekolah jauh dan sebagainya. Dan bagi keluarga miskin, seringkali bahwa perkawinan anak adalah satu solusi ya untuk meringankan beban orang tua. Dan mereka kadang-kadang nggak peduli siapa calonnya. Banyak.
Struggling to make ends meet, some Filipinos swap old items for food via online bartering sites as dozens have sprouted during the Philippines virus lockdowns. Take a look.
Kasi po yung mga lumang items, mahirap na po siya ibenta talaga usually ngayon eh. Minsan na po, hindi na siya napapansin. Eh pag barter po, mas madaling parang ipalit sa kanila ng pagkain kaysa pera. Saka mas common na rin po na, mas madali ito, magagamit ko to, papalitan na lang nila ng pagkain.
Ay, syempre, aanin ko naman, nakatiwangwang lang. Ay, hindi ko naman nagagamit. Di, ito na lang pagkain. Busog pa. Eh, wala naman, alam nga naman mag-aantay ako ng bigay. Nakakaya naman yung panihingi ako ng hingi. Kahit mga anak ko yan, nahihiya din ako. Kasi may mga may asawa, may anak.
ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Know the latest news and information here and abroad in Aguila Balita, the morning and noontime news programs brought about by the synergy of Net25 and Radio Aguila.
Get the fresh news and reports from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao in our midday newscast in Aguila, Pilipinas.
Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila, Provincia.
Be aware of important events in the region in ASEAN in Focus.
And be updated with the biggest news around the world with the support of its international correspondents and volunteers in Eagle News International.
Tune in to Mata ng Aguila and get the day's headlines and news that are sharp, accurate, and objective. Catch all of these on Net25, your reliable source of news, entertainment, and technology updates.
You can also watch our news and current affairs programs and entertainment shows through our Eagle News and Net25 Facebook pages, YouTube channel, at Eagle News, and in our live streaming sites. Be informed with relevant news and information in these interesting times.
The decision of an Olongapo court to allow the early release of United States Marine Lance Corporal Joseph Scott Pemberton is an act of judicial overreach. That is according to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. Now, Secretary Roque said the order of Olongapo City Regional Trial Court, Branch 74, for the Bureau of Corrections to release Pemberton set a very bad precedent. Take a look.
Lang sa tingin ko po, hayaan na muna natin magsalita ang gobyerno mismo sa isyong ito. I know I have a personal involvement in this case, pero ako I find comfort po dun sa sinabi sa akin ni Secretary Maynard Guevara kanina na taliwas po ang desisyon ng Korte sa rekomendasyon ng Bureau of Correction. Ito pong pagpabibigay po ng liberality para sa mga convicted felons, ito po ay executive function. Kaya dapat po, sa tingin ko, kung talagang iba ang rekomendasyon ng Bureau of Correction, dapat sinunod po yan ng Korte. No? Dahil sa batas naman, it is the executive that will determine their entitlement to liberality as far as punishment is concerned. So, iwan ko na po hanggang dun yan, pero Rose, I share the exact same sentiments that you have. Di naman po pwede na tinarato na parang hayop yung kababayan natin, tapik lang sa kamay ang parusa. Very bad po, no? Kasi parang pinapakita na hindi mahalaga ang buhay ng Pilipino. 5 taon lang sa ginintoong hawla ang pwedeng maging parusa.
Secretary Roque added that it was unnecessary to order the early release of Pemberton because the court's decision is not yet final and executory. In a separate statement, the Department of Justice meanwhile said Pemberton cannot walk free yet pending a court's resolution on the motion for reconsideration filed by Filipino transgender woman Jennifer Laude, who was killed by the U.S. Marine in 2014. On October 11, 2014, Laude was found dead inside a bathroom of a motel in Olongapo City after a night out with Pemberton. Pemberton in December 2015 was sentenced to imprisonment ranging from 6 to 10 years for his admission of killing Laude. Secretary Roque, who once served as the private legal counsel for the Laude family, said it was unfortunate that the court authorized the release of Pemberton for his supposed good behavior. Pemberton's case was revived when President Duterte decided to abrogate the Philippines Visiting Forces Agreement with the United States. It was on February 11 this year when the Philippines informed the U.S. about its decision to revoke the VFA, a military deal inked in 1998 to allow American troops who are participating in joint military drills to go to Manila sans passport and visa. The VFA remains in effect after President Duterte ordered on June 1st the suspension of VFA abrogation in light of political and other developments in the region. Secretary Roque said the court's decision on Pemberton's case would have an impact on VFA, emphasizing that the death of Laude is symbolic of the death of Philippine sovereignty. The first international flight in more than 5 months landed in China's capital with passengers greeted by airport staff in full hazmat suits as a ban on foreign arrivals in Beijing eased. Chinese aviation authorities are allowing arrivals in Beijing under intense COVID-19 safety rules, and these are from Thailand, Cambodia, Pakistan, Greece, Denmark, Austria, Sweden, and Canada. Countries deemed low risk for cross-border infections. Travelers in China need to show a negative coronavirus test before boarding and are subject to centralized quarantine on arrival for 14 days, along with 2 more tests. The number of passengers on direct international flights to Beijing is capped at 500 per day during a trial period, according to CCTV. Since late March, Beijing-bound international flights have been diverted to other Chinese cities where passengers are screened for the coronavirus and quarantine. 11 cases were reported Thursday in China, where the coronavirus first emerged late last year. Health officials said they were all imported. China remains wary of the risk of an influx of cases from other countries now that its local outbreaks have been largely brought under control. Most foreigners are still forbidden entry into the country. An Indonesian dentist is trying to lift her patients' spirits with customized and colorful PPE suits, which she creates herself. Take a look.
bikin konsep safety, professional, and beauty in harmony. Jadi meskipun hazmat saya adalah berwarna-warni, colorful, dan custom, tetapi bahannya tetap APD, tetap bahan standar yang sama ya.
And before we go, we would like to have a special shout out to Brother Willen Regalado, who is taking care of our ASEAN bureaus. Thank you very much, po, for watching also, and thank you for all your support. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.